Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Savage and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. And always better when I see your face, even if it's across the miles on a Zoom call, as we are doing these shows these days. And of course, with that in mind, we want to welcome our other Zoom guests that are with us, special friends from across Northeast Ohio, across the country, and in one case, even over the oceans there to your native India. So welcome to all of you. If you would like to join us on that basis, you can go to the website, wintradio.com. It'll give you the link. So you could actually be part of our Zoom audience if you'd like to, and we can converse with you during the breaks. And if not, if that's not convenient, of course, you can listen to us on AM, FM radio here in Northeast Ohio or around the world at wintradio.com. Ratanjit, today, well, you know, kind of in every show, we've had some reference to the pandemic, to the impact of the pandemic on our lives emotionally, some of the financial impact that has affected how we act in our lives. There have been a lot of changes with that. And over these shows, we've stumbled a little bit on maybe that it wasn't all bad. Maybe there certainly were bad parts of COVID, but there also seemed to be maybe a few silver linings. And I thought it might be empowering to us to really look in greater detail to see if in the final assessment, maybe not final because we're still going through it, but at this point, at this stage, was it a curse or was it a gift? And maybe we can actually kind of keep score on it right now. And I know that this is a little bit challenging, perhaps to some of our listeners who have lost a loved one. And when that happens, I understand, we all understand that that is such a tragedy of this life that it would be hard to look at this as possibly being a gift. And so I want to acknowledge that. If we have people who have lost loved ones, and pretty much everybody has lost somebody they know, we want to certainly express our sympathies again and our compassion for what you're feeling, and we understand that. But in the bigger picture of the world and of our life, were there some good aspects, some silver linings? What do you think?
Well, see, in life, Ray, everything which comes to us, good or bad, has both sides. Just like a coin. Coin has two sides. Day, night, there is a bright side, there's a dark side. But ultimately, it all depends on us because nature has given us incredible creative power to understand how to cope with any of these situations. See, there are countries where there is no food, people are starving, dying. That's a curse, right? And then there's a country like US, there is so much abundant food. If you go to Europe to a restaurant, the serving is so small. When you come to US, my God, you have such huge serving. And most of us eat it all. And as a consequence of that, we are the biggest obese country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And as a consequence, in spite of US spending $3.8 trillion on healthcare every year, US is the sickest country in the entire civilized world. So the food has become curse. The access we have here in US, everything is an access, has become a curse. So curse and gift are basically all dependent on how we utilize it. So looking at COVID, now how can somebody say that it is a gift? It is a disease. It is killing people. It is making us, the whole society is paralyzed. Our economy is in doldrums. Everything is bad about COVID, right? But
Mhm.
it has exposed some of the weaknesses as a human civilization is facing. And if we can see those weaknesses and correct them, we can avoid another bigger episode like COVID. And one of the weakness is several weaknesses. And one of the weaknesses is that we are not prepared to face COVID health-wise. Our health is compromised. That is why we have such higher number of death. Otherwise, the death rate would be much smaller if we were healthier. Our system was able to cope and fight with these diseases. So, number one, that is what has exposed. And the reason we are unhealthy is our overindulgence. And second weaknesses, which we came to know, is we are all parked in what is in it for me, rather than combining us as a one single unit as a society. So we said, oh, it's going to happen to these people. It's not nothing going to happen to me. And as a consequence, we all are suffering. We have lost loved ones and so on. And the third one is that we have not been truthful to ourselves in life. And this is a hard one to accept. How can you say that, Ratanjit? I've been truthful to myself. But as a consequence, we have lost the capacity to be trustworthy. So when our experts say something, we do not trust them because they are not truthful to themselves. So as a consequence, the message which was given to our society was not universally accepted. Otherwise, US was, the civilized world would have been able to handle such a thing very easily because it spreads from one person to another. If we segregated that person, let him cure, the disease dies in itself because it is not in the air, it is not somewhere, it comes through one person to another. So these are some of these drawbacks which we have. And then our healthcare system is parked in sickness care, not in health care. So we have not, our healthcare, our hospitals, pharmaceuticals, our doctors only make money when we are sick. They are vested in our sickness, not in our health. So we have lopsided picture, and that is why this human race was not ready for such a disaster. I can go on.
Yeah, you're on a roll. I was writing these down. I thought we would kind of keep score, pretend that this is a sport today, and write all the goods and bads. And right now, I wrote all the goods down, but it's crazy that they're goods because these are all weaknesses that you've exposed, so they're all bad. But it's what you're saying is that it's good that we've exposed these weaknesses so that we can make them better and eliminate them. Let's go back one by one with what we've already talked about. I think there are some other ones to add there too. Besides exposing weaknesses, I think that there are some other good gifts out of it. And of course, on the bad side, the fact that there has been death for so many people, and even for those who haven't passed, as we said in the opening of the show, so many people that have been affected by others, either because they knew them and loved them, or even just because of being surrounded by it. That's obviously the worst part of it on this. And the paralyzation, that was a good, really good word. You said that we were paralyzed by it. And I think it was a very effective word to describe how we are, how we changed because of this. We really were paralyzed in our lives and our emotions and our actions and our thought processes, etc. But let's go back to each one of those, of your exposed weaknesses. The first one you said was that we found out we weren't prepared health-wise for something so out of the ordinary. Our systems were in place, pretty much our bodies were in place to handle. We get a cold, we get a flu, or if we get something serious, if we get a disease, if we find out we have a heart ailment, we have systems in place and processes, and most of us are able to get care. But this did expose, you're absolutely right, it exposed at this level of this many people getting sick with something that we didn't have a lot of knowledge of. It exposed both that the system wasn't really in place to handle it, and secondly, that we weren't able to handle it. To your point there is that, we have compromised health. If we are obese, if we are the most obese country, if we do have the highest risk of heart attacks, if we have the highest risk of getting cancer, all these other things, obviously we're more prone to and vulnerable to getting these. So if we wanted to solve that, that's not an easy thing to change. All of America and all of the world would have to change their lifestyles. We would have to change the entire health system. It's exposed it, but is that really something that we can act on?
See, everything is controlled by economics. Economy is driving everything. That is the wrong driver. Because food industry, whatever is producing packaged food, is poison for human body. But can you, if that is not used, there are so many people going to be unemployed. Mm-hmm. So we
right.
same thing with hospitals. Right here in Cleveland, we have Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital. The largest employer of this city are hospitals, healthcare. So people take pride in this. When I was on the board of Cleveland Foundation, this was discussed. We are so proud of our organization. Look at, I said, we should be ashamed that the highest employer is our healthcare. That means how sick the city is. Right?
Well, since they're both world renowned for certain things, it's an evidence not only of the city, it's evidence of really, the whole national and global attitude, because they all send their sickest people here. So, that's one of your other points, is that we don't really have health care, we have sickness care. That's a very true point. But can that be changed, Ratanjit? Legitimately.
You see, everything is driven by economy.
Right.
Although we are digressing here, but it's a very important point. So how do we change that? If we change the focus of the industry from sickness care to health care. So in other words, if the hospitals and doctors and these people who are related to healthcare industry make money when you are healthy, rather than they make money when you are sick, you change the whole thing upside down. So how do we do that? See, right now, there are three players. The public, who is the customer, and the healthcare provided by hospitals, pharmaceuticals, and doctors. And there is a third player, which is insurance companies. So insurance company make money by denying you insurance. When you are terminally sick, they take you off. Their best customer is who doesn't fall sick, who keep on paying. So imagine if the healthcare industry, these doctors and hospitals and pharmaceutical combined together, offered insurance. In other words, their now revenue comes from people who are healthy. If they are kept healthy, everything they collect as insurance, as their premium becomes profit. So now they are motivated to keep you healthy. And then, because they don't know how to keep you healthy, they can build a wellness center which monitors you in your way you eat, the way you exercise, the way you live, and everything else. And if you follow the protocol, your insurance rate goes down. If you don't follow, you pay higher premium. So then you have motivation to follow a protocol which will keep you healthy. And the healthier you are, the whole industry benefits. So that is the way, if we change the paradigm, we can correct it overnight, instantly. Otherwise, we are constantly have this, whether it is Obamacare or God care or whichever care it is, nothing is going to work because they are all parked in sickness care. They are not parked in health care. So if this thing has exposed our weaknesses, this is where we need to go. And in fact, I talked to the CEO of Cleveland Clinic at one time, Dr. Castro, who has retired. When I mentioned this model, he said, Ratanjit, what you are talking is the future of the healthcare industry. I said, if it is the future, why don't you bring it up? He says, I'm retiring, I'm done. So another thing is that most of these people who are there for a career to make money so that they can retire, they are not interested in human care. They do few things here and there to get a medal or a trophy or a Nobel Prize. But they are really not interested in making a dramatic change.
Ratanjit, we've had a lot of shows over our 25 years together. This one might end up being one of the most controversial of all of them because you have boldly spoken about the realities that are facing us. And when you said that this has exposed some weaknesses, I'm sure there's some people listening right now watching this that are saying, well, Dana, wait a minute, you're tearing down this industry, or you're tearing down this country, or you're tearing down, you're saying that all these people aren't, to be a doctor is considered a very noble profession. To be in healthcare, it's a lot of education, it's a lot of training. They take an oath to protect people and to work to their best ability to make them healthy. And you're exposing here in this show that maybe that isn't going on. It isn't really happening the way it's supposed to be. So this is interesting, and I don't know how our audience is responding to it. I can see a few faces here for our Zoom callers, but I'm really curious. So we need to continue down this path and better understand exactly what you mean, and also most importantly, this solution, to talk about this solution more and other solutions for what else has been exposed in these weaknesses. We try to reduce people's stress on this show. And right now, I think maybe we've raised a little bit to momentarily, temporarily, because I think we've taken something that we thought maybe we had good associated with it, and we've exposed that maybe there's some weaknesses even for some of our strongest perceived assets. So we definitely will talk much more about this. We have to take a short break, and then we will be back and continue our show talking about COVID-19. Was it a curse or was it a gift? We'll be right back. All right, we are on break, everybody. We'd love to have your input here very quickly, but if anybody would like to comment, am I crazy with what I said there at the end, or do you guys think Ratanjit is A-okay with everything he's saying? We shouldn't worry about it? I'm curious what you think.
Go ahead, Bas.
Number one, Ratanjit brought up an excellent point, and I think he must have brought it up earlier as well. We see things like Kaiser Permanente coming up, who are interested in keeping you well, or at least they pretend that they are interested in keeping you well, because that their premium is fixed, and that's what they have, their own doctors and complete facility. I am now a patient of Aetna. They are trying to do this, something similar, but with flexibility. However, when we want to look at the something is good or bad, I go back to Mr. Sondhi's theory, oneness. Do we as individuals truly know the good and the bad of any act, not only called COVID, for the entire creation? So if we look at the effect on the entire creation, that is when we'll be able to at least say something about good and bad. Thank you.
Time for one other person quickly, if anybody? Dylan, you want to join us today?
Sure. I think it takes courage to stand up to, the way things are, the apparatus, the exposure that's happening now around not just the healthcare industry, but a lot of industries, the food industry, the banking industry.
We are back on Stress Free Living. Love our breaks, love our opportunity to interact and get some feedback from them. Dylan Desai has joined us too, and he has been a guest, frequent guest on our show over the years from California, the place where great intellect exists, but sometimes we don't see the effects of that in the way that we would think. So we may have Dylan join us here in the conversation as well. Ratanjit, one of our guests, very astutely pointed out, just as you said earlier, there's always two sides. There's always a good and a bad. And the comment was made here during the break that ultimately we can't assess if it's good or bad until we consider the oneness factor. And that is, in the big picture, in the total picture of the world, both today and for the future, how are our actions affecting that whole world and affecting the future of that world? And when you look at it through that scope, when you look at it through that particular set of criteria, you are spot on with the weaknesses that you have mentioned, because we can't continue, the world can't continue to survive in a positive direction if we continue to only build the economy when people get sick. And especially when that is the biggest employer, like in cities, and it often is. It's not just unique to Cleveland. We happen to have two world-class hospitals, but there's hospitals in every city, or not in every city, but in many, many cities. And usually the case is they are the biggest employer.
But see, the point is that we throw money at everything. And we are spending close to $4 trillion on healthcare, 3.8 to be exact. And yet we remain to be the sickest nation on earth. See, one of the things COVID did made us realize that I cannot survive in seclusion. I am interconnected and interdependent. Not only people around in USA or in my neighborhood or in my family, around the world. If there was one case of COVID, it started with one case of COVID, wherever, China, one case, and then it multiplied. And the whole world is now completely under its grasp. So we are interconnected. So you cannot operate in seclusion. So that is what oneness we have been talking about. It's the same like human body. One limb or one organ cannot be healthy if all the organs are not healthy. If one organ starts to fail, the human body fails. We knew that, but we never consider the whole human race as part of one single breathing universal power present in all of us. And
I'm putting that on the score of good. In my mind, you've talked about oneness for all the years that I've been blessed to know you, but it's still kind of a concept that is sometimes difficult to grasp. But this pandemic has proven oneness. It truly has proven oneness, because the fact is that we are all connected. Right now, we have somebody on our Zoom call from India. It's nighttime there, but and it's daytime in the United States. And it just shows, though, we're connected instantly by the internet. Travel, transportation has changed so that people come and go across the world every minute of every hour of every day. So we're connected. And we see through the pandemic, the fact that what did affect one person, as you said, in one small town, eventually spread to the entire world. I think that's actually a very good thing, that it's made us realize that we are connected physically. Okay, now I think the next step is to say, are we connected spiritually? Do we buy into that idea that we are all one being universally?
see, there is another side of it, Ray. We have been trained, our whole system, legal system, or justice system, they all work in their mindset, let's find the guilty and punish them. So when something like pandemic happened, we are looking for who was responsible. Let's punish them. We are all one. If your kidney has caused the failure, so you are going to punish your kidney? You're going to find a cure. So in oneness, you cannot punish another person. You have to understand that person who has committed so-called crime is mentally not parked in the right place. Or in other words, in the simple language, he's a sick or she is a sick person. So our obligation is to find cure for that rather than punish. We are the most advanced nation in the world. We are only 4.6% of the population of the entire world. But we have more than 25% of the total number of prisoners of the world in our prisons. So our systems are all antique, old. We are thinking ourselves to be an advanced country, but literally we are the most backward country. So somebody has to say these words, otherwise it won't wake people up.
So, so how do you change that? You had a brilliant plan that you shared with us on the healthcare, and we could spend much more time on it, but we have limited time, so we need to move away from that a little bit. So now you've reflected on the justice system, and those numbers are staggering. 4% of the world's population, but 25% of those who are incarcerated are in this country, or in this tiny country relative to the rest of the world. And yet we have a fourth of all the people that are in jails are in this country. That's terrible. I mean, it's embarrassing. It makes me, it really bothers me to the core to understand that that's going on. So what is the cure for that? What is your plan, your ideas to solve that? I mean, it isn't just to say don't go to jail. I mean, there was a crime committed. There is a sickness there of sorts. So what do we do to
Well, let's go to the fundamental. In a family, when a child, mother never incarcerate a child. Parents, the first important duty is to make them better. So if the child commits some crime, you don't kill them. You don't. So even if you punish them, it doesn't work. You have to talk to them. You have to understand what is the reason they are reacting that way. Lot of the time, when people are depressed, when they have no significance left in their life, they end up committing crime. If they are redirected, it could be a mental condition, it could be a physical condition, it could be a family emotional condition. If we correct those things, our society is all, we leave people say, you're 18-year-old, you're adult, you're on your own. Some people mature at 14, some people mature at 30.
Some people never do.
Some people never do. So it is a question of we have to hold their hand. We are all together. Once we realize that my success, my sanity, my peace of mind is dependent on everyone around me. Right now, I'm thinking, oh, it is my life, I can do whatever I want. We are basically part in a anti-oneness paradigm, which is not reality.
So you talk about the healthcare industry. Part of that healthcare industry is in emotional health, mental health. Right. I mean, there are, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people that are involved in one way, shape, or form with psychology and psychiatry and social work and therapy and all the different things that we supposedly are doing to help people that are in the state of mind that you're referring to. They're hopeless. They are, depressed and discouraged.
They don't have any place to anybody to talk to. See, when I came to this country, there used to be little mom and pop stores. You go to a store to buy things, and suddenly all those stores disappeared, and we have these giant boxes called Walmarts of the world, which are not even offering you a job which pays your health insurance, because 80% of the employees of Walmart are on food stamps. And we call that progress. All we are looking at cheaper price. It is better to pay a little higher price to a neighborhood store where I can go and chat and they understand my difficulty. When I go to a neighborhood store, which was there, they knew what my family was going through and what they were. So I had personal connection. I belong to a society. Right now, I do not belong anywhere. I don't even belong in a family, because look at the divorce rate. Look at, families are segregated. They are not concerned about family or anybody else. They're all concerned about what is in it for me. This is absolutely complete absence of oneness. So we are going to pay an incredible price, and this is what is leading to mental sickness. So again, if you are part in the current paradigm, you want to cure sick people. So mentally cure people are a blessing to our healthcare system, because they have a patient. They can cure them. But how did they get there? We don't understand why they got to be where they are. Everyone can be mentally sick in absence of, if they do not feel they belong anywhere, nobody cares for them. Obviously, you're going to be mentally sick.
So is this, this sounds like this could be a core problem of a lot of issues, not just leading to the 25% of the world's incarceration, but also leading to the fact, and I'm sure you have the statistics, how many people are on Valium and those types of drugs that are there for those who are depressed.
60 million people.
How many?
60 million people.
60 million people that are on drugs, medication, because they are severely depressed. And how many more aren't on it that are doing nothing, or they're taking natural supplements or whatever they're trying to do to cope with that. So the idea of feeling alone, of feeling depressed, discouraged, hopeless, this is huge. And it does seem, and I'm not trying to be negative on that industry, but it does seem like even that industry is more about continuing to have weekly sessions and twice a week sessions and take medication. There seems to be a big economic stimulation in that industry too, in terms of maybe not helping you completely, maybe just helping you a little bit for a longer period of time. And
US is the biggest economy in the world, $21 trillion GDP. They have close to 614 billionaires with net worth of $4 trillion. And yet, my friend, 43% of the population of US barely can afford a day-to-day living expenses, healthcare, childcare, rent for the house, or even paying for their telephone. So 43%. And we call ourselves to be the greatest nation in the world because it is all about greed and fear. We are all part in the human body mode. And no matter how many laws we pass, no matter how many books we read, no matter how many PhDs we have, it's not going to cure until we are told the reality that I am not the human body. I am the power which enlivens the human body, which is present in everyone. So my purpose of life is to serve that power. Purpose of life is not to just collect things and become secluded and become mentally sick. So if anybody tells us the right thing, we can be the happiest nation in the world. Now, this is not only unique to US. Every country in the world is facing the same thing. if people listening around the world think that we are better off than US, think again. Nobody's. US is, because it's going that fast, it has reached that point of where everybody is going to reach.
Ratanjit, you have laid out the problems here. There's no question about it. Again, on a temporary basis, I don't think we've reduced anybody's stress this morning, but I think we have to accept where we're at before we can figure out where we need to go. So when we come back from our second break here, we want to talk a little bit more about where we need to go collectively, individually, how we can avoid some of the stress in our life, some of the realities, not ignore them, but overcome them. And that's what we're trying to do here today on this, what's turning out to be a very special edition of Stress Free Living. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, we went way over time. We'll have a couple minutes to talk, and then we'll have about 10 minutes left of the show only.
Sorry,
No, it's okay. It's a powerful show. It's a very powerful, real show today. A little different.
Yeah.
Usually we're encouraging, inspiring. Today we're not. We're just facing the truth. Please.
Dr. Bhatia, what
Yeah, well, yes, I totally agree, that with all the material comforts that we aspire for, I think that our societies are getting mentally sicker and there's a deterioration. Now, here I would like to emphasize the role of education in our societies, where sadly we are focusing on training more than virtue building, character building, which I think should be, all about the next decade or so now, especially after the pandemic. I feel now we have to really focus on inculcation of values to our students, where from a very early age they learn about coping, they learn empathy, and where we instill these virtues from that age. So I think that is one way, to probably start with that transformation that we are wanting to see.
Absolutely.
So education will be the only way to do it, because as Ratanjit said, the number of degree holders and PhDs and technically sound students will go up. But what happens to the mind? In fact, if that is not in place, societies could fail, and that's what has happened now.
Beautiful, absolutely.
We are back on Stress Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Ratanjit Sandhi, Ray Samich with you. We converse, as I've been sharing with you, with our Zoom very special guests that are with us from around the world. Some of as I look at their faces, oh my gosh, I am just surrounded here by so much intelligence and experience and wisdom, and most of it from your corner of the screen, Ratanjit, but certainly our other guests here are also just such wonderful treasures to have with us for this show. I'm going to follow the path of what our professor just shared with us here, and we have a couple professors on our call today. But she talked about education and educating our young people. Do you agree? Is that part of our solution to this mess that you have laid out for us over today's show? The state that we're in right now, must we look at a whole different way of teaching our young people to understand what's important in the world?
Yes. See, Ray, if you go back 100 years, how the person was rated was not just on their wealth. They were rated on their character. And today, you can cheat on your spouse, you can have 20 affairs, you can file for 20 bankruptcies. As long as you have money, somebody is going to give you a Nobel Prize. So our model for for our society is erroneous. Our model is hook or crook, however you make money, you are successful. So we have to redefine what is success. And as a consequence, when you would go to school in about 100 years back, you have already gotten character building from your family, from your neighbors, from your leader. And now what you needed was tools. An education system was designed to give you tools. So what happened in all these years, we polished our tools, but never paid attention to who are we giving the tools. We are giving the tools to a characterless person, so they can misuse the tools. Do you know, in 1980, so technology has given us amazing tools, but the technology also made people smarter, but wrong people smarter. So in 2018, the cyber crime was 600 billion around the world. And this year, they are projecting 6 trillion. So again, if our purpose is not defined, our values are not defined, or character is not developed, we are going to have these incredible weapons in the wrong hands. And the whole world is going to pay an incredible price for that.
Can we still even come to an agreement with where we're at right now on what the definition of character is, the definition of integrity? Have we strayed so far away that maybe we can't even know what values to teach our young people anymore? I mean, you mentioned something very, very astutely. You said that we didn't really have to teach character in the schools. We taught them the tools because they already knew what character was from their families, from their, their infancy. You shared on another show, I think by 5 years old, where our personality is fully developed.
Right.
Okay. So they're not even really in school yet. I mean, maybe a little daycare, but they're not really learning too much tools by 5. But our parents used to teach that. Our grandparents would teach that. Our uncles and aunts would help us to develop our character. Is that really one of the core problems? Is that maybe those people aren't there? They're too busy to teach? Or do they not even know what character is anymore? Because it's been such a long time since anybody really taught it.
Yes. See, character cannot be taught, by the way.
Okay.
We can do another show on character.
Good, because we only have 2 minutes left on this one.
So, character is an outcome of you being aware of who you are. Your character is a reflection of who you think you are. If you think you are the human body, you are parked in 5 senses, your character is all going to rotate around fear, greed, and ego. Doesn't matter how you polish it. You make it look prettier, but it's still fear, greed, and ego. If your character is coming out of your knowing that you are not the human body, you are the empowering power, universal power present in you as well as present in everyone else, then your character reflects empathy, your character reflects giving, kindness, and all those things automatically come out of you. You cannot write these chits on the mirror and I'm going to be an honest person. I'm going to be have empathy. that does not happen. And you cannot teach that. Rajat Gupta, who was the CEO of the biggest consulting firm, prestigious consulting firm, whose core value is ethics, and he taught ethics. What happened? He was caught for insider trading and went to jail. What happened to his ethics? The guy was teaching ethics. So you cannot teach ethics, my friend. You cannot teach character. Character is an outcome of who you think you are.
Wow, that is that is really powerful. We do need to do a show advancing that for sure. We don't have enough time to go there, but you planted that seed in us. What can we teach? If we can't teach character, we can teach values. Is that what we can teach? Is that what we can share with our children? And if so, can we agree on what values?
We have to teach them the truth. The truth is that who are you? There's no, all other truths are relative truths. They are coming out of your core truth of understanding who are you. Until we realize who we are, all our truths are going to be erroneous. And that's what we see around us. And once we make a person realize that, look, if your brain is a computer given to you, a creative tool given to you, if it is attached to your five senses, it is going to make you greedier, smarter, to cheat others, to get more money. But if the same brain is attached to the universal power, which is free of fear, free of greed, then you are now into a mindset of making a difference, adding value. That is where your ultimate joy is coming from. So once that thing happens to you, there is no reason to lie. When you and I are the same, how would I lie? My kidneys don't lie to my heart because they don't have this separate brain to separate them. They think they are part of the same entity. So why do we lie to others? Because we think we are separate. Once you realize you are the same, enlightened by the same power, truth happens, kindness happens, empathy happens. All these great things happen. You cannot teach any virtues or values. They are the outcome of who you think you are.
Oh my goodness, Ratanjit. Powerful show here today. Dylan here, one of our guests, used the word during one of our breaks and said courage. It takes courage to move forward. And certainly your courage shows constantly in your willingness to say things that a lot of people don't want to hear. Certainly there are trillions of dollars. You keep using that term, and trillions are around us. There are trillions of dollars around the world that are invested in making us think that it is a world that will be better if we're greedy, if we have more possessions, if we buy this and go here and possess this, that we will be happy. And you are willing to stand up to that and say, no, it's not about the economics. It's not about the greed. It's all about understanding who we are and what we are supposed to be and what we're supposed to do. And I want to thank you, take this moment and thank you for having that courage and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom with us every week. We definitely will continue this thought process. specifically and generally in the weeks to come. So please continue to join us. Thank you to all of our Zoom guests. Thank you to our other audiences around the world. And Ratanjit, most of all, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray.
Remember,
Thank you so much.
we are all playing the same game. We will talk with you again real soon.